Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government.
1973. We saw Nixon suspend offensive action toward the North Vietnamese, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon was released, and a little thing called Roe versus Wade happened, where we saw a woman's right to choose finally take form without consequences from her government. Now, what do all these things have in common? Honestly, nothing, except they were all a long time ago. So long ago that they've become defining moments in our cultural framework, to the point that you couldn't imagine somebody saying, hey, what if Pink Floyd didn't make Dark Side of the Moon? What if we never pulled our troops out of Vietnam? Or what if we got rid of Roe versus Wade's ruling? Oh, we're considering it? Today we're going to talk about women's rights and the direction our country was going before Trump's administration and in relation to during his administration. Then we'll cap off with the newly elected Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett. This is the bumpy road to women's rights.
I think that to raise the dignity of woman and give her freedom of choice in this area is an extraordinary event. And I think that January 22nd, 1973 would be an historic day.
Before the Trump administration, employers were mandated to cover contraception for their female employees who were covered under their insurance. This gave many women the opportunity for family planning and contraceptive care that they would not have been able to afford without the ACA.
You see for us with this new ruling that just came out moments ago. Pete, what can you tell us?
So this is a victory for the Trump administration in efforts to provide broader opt-outs for employers who want to opt out, that is to say, not provide health insurance for contraceptive care.
This guarantees to have a huge negative financial impact on, half of the country. While birth control pills cost between $20 and $50 per month without insurance, an IUD insertion can cost more than $1,000. An unmanageable amount for many patients, especially if they're low income. But the ACA changed the calculation for many patients. The legislation, passed in 2010, requires that employer-sponsored insurance plans cover certain preventative care services without a copay or other cost sharing. And in 2011, the Obama administration designated contraception as one of the services that had to be covered in what is often called the contraceptive mandate. That meant that millions of Americans who got health insurance through their jobs could get birth control at no extra charge beyond their monthly premiums. That law had a significant impact. The share of insured women who got birth control without a copay rose from 15% in the fall of 2012 to 67% in the spring of 2014. So what happened in our next administration? I wouldn't dare try and understand the true reasoning for turning back the clock on years of successful public health policy and jeopardizing countless of Americans' ability to control their reproductive lives. But one could theorize a lot of it had to do with money. It was an attempt to save money on many programs that were rolled back on. Programs like what, you ask? Let's talk about Title IX.
Title IX is technically a one-sentence law. So it basically means that no one should be discriminated against based on their gender, that it would get in the way of their educational opportunities. But there's hundreds and hundreds of pages of guidance, and it is complicated.
Title IX was signed by President Nixon in 1972. For decades, it was primarily used to guarantee women equal access to athletic scholarships and resources for women's athletic teams. But in the 1990s, a series of Supreme Court decisions concluded that Title IX also applied to sexual harassment and assault in all educational settings.
However, there have been, we'll call them changes, made to Title IX that limited what constituted as sexual abuse and harassment. Things like forcing victims to confront their perpetrators, flexibility for institutions to determine the level of evidence necessary, i.e. clear and convincing, to substantiate a sexual assault claim, and rollbacks on requirements of who is mandated to report cases of sexual violence. That last one is really scary. Just think about that for a second. Okay, so what else changed? Well, there's this thing called the United Nations Population Fund, or UNFPA. which provides family planning and reproductive services to more than 150 countries globally.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres has warned a decision by the US to cut funding to the United Nations Population Fund will have devastating effects for the health of women and girls worldwide. The Trump administration says the agency supports or participates in coercive abortion or involuntary sterilization, a claim the UN strenuously denies.
The agency refutes the claim that it, quotes, supports or participates in the management of a program of coercive abortion or involuntary sterilization in China. As of with all of its work, UNFPA promotes the human rights of individuals and couples to make their own decisions free of coercion or discrimination.
Okay, one more. Just because, this is so much fun. President Obama signed an executive order making large companies report their employees' wages based on race and gender. Trump rolled that back to not burden the companies. What are the side effects? Well, this causes the wage gap to continue, which puts women at higher risk of poverty, which makes them less likely to be able to afford medical care of any kind. I think we're starting to see a pattern here. One administration went this way, and the next one said, nah, we good. But what about the progress made with the Me Too movement? That was all during this administration and had very positive effects on our society, right? Well, on the surface, sure. We've been forced to have these conversations and look inward to our own place within this system. However, what policies followed? The Human Life Protection Act, or House Bill 314. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed into law in May of 2019.
Breaking news just moments ago, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, a short time ago, signing the most restrictive abortion law in the nation, essentially making abortion a crime. The bill passing after a contentious debate in the state legislature. Under the law, doctors could now face 99 years in prison for performing an abortion. And tonight, supporters of the law in that state have made it clear they hope the legal fight that will now come after the governor signed this bill tonight will take the debate right to the Supreme Court to challenge Roe versus Wade.
Okay, so why is this scary? Well, if the bill is brought to the Supreme Court, it will be up to 9 judges to decide the fate of Roe versus Wade. 9 people. Out of those 9 people, 6 of them are Republican-appointed judges, and out of those 6, one of them is Amy Coney Barrett. Oh, did you think I forgot about her? No, silly. Now, this isn't going to be a bashing of Amy on any sort of personal level, and just to make sure I'm not bashing her, I will only read the words of others. While the New York City Bar Association finds that Judge Amy Coney Barrett meets several of its evaluation criteria, due to unique concerns, the City Bar has found Judge Barrett to be qualified to serve as a Supreme Court justice with reservations. Look, maybe it's not fair to assume she would vote against Roe versus Wade just because she's a conservative justice. However, her past doesn't reflect that she would do any different. She has voted 3 times on abortion-related cases in the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and has looked kindly on restrictions twice. Usually we end this with asking what you think about all this, but the reality is it might not come down to what we think. It might come down to what 9 justices decide. So instead, I'll ask, do you think Amy should be one of them?